Welcome to the Vibrant Living Podcast, where we talk about living fully aligned in your spirit, soul, and your life. I am Donna Tashjian, your host and the founder of Vibrant Living International. Recently, we gathered for Fortified. It was a day of women rising in authority, ease, and joy. And there is something really special about sharing honestly from our heart and vulnerability. Today, you are going to hear from Amanda Hietter. What I love so much about Amanda's story is it speaks to what so many women quietly live inside, and sometimes without realizing it. It's survival mode. From the outside, it looks like you're responsible, capable, even successful, but underneath, there could be exhaustion, pressure, and a feeling of being so alone. So Amanda shares very vulnerably during her time together. So let's go listen in. All right. Amen. We are about to welcome Amanda to the stage. Let me tell you a little bit about Amanda. Amanda is the CEO of Across the Horizon Travel. She helps Christian leaders, coaches, and organizations plan transformational retreats and luxury group travels. She specializes in international faith-based tours, wellness, marriage retreats. It's anything about travel. She's your girl. And she has a huge story. So let's welcome Amanda to the stage.
Thank you so much, Donna. I am so blessed to be here. Thank you. So, I have a question for each and every one of you ladies. What if the version of you that helped you survive is now the very thing that's preventing you from healing? Think about that. Because survival mode is dangerous when it becomes your identity. At first, it can feel very necessary. You learn how to push through pain, how to smile when you're hurting, how to keep showing up even when you're emotionally exhausted, how to function while quietly falling apart. And eventually, people start complimenting your strength. They say things like, "You are so resilient. You always handle everything. I don't know how you do it." But what they don't realize is that you're drowning internally. And that was me for years. I became incredibly good at surviving. I survived trauma, abuse, addiction, toxic relationships, heartbreak, even emotional chaos. But surviving is not the same thing as healing, because survival keeps you functioning. Healing changes you. And my life did not begin transforming until I stopped asking myself, how do I hold everything together? And I finally started asking, God, what happens if I let you heal me instead? That question changed my entire life. So I want to share a little bit of my story with you. I grew up in church. Faith was a part of my life from the very beginning. I accepted Christ when I was only 5 years old, and I truly believed that God had a purpose for me in my life. But early in my childhood, someone I trusted violated boundaries that should never have been crossed. And when trauma enters your life early, it changes how you see yourself. Without realizing it, I started believing all of these lies. That my worth came from being wanted. That attention meant love. that my voice didn't matter, that pain was something I simply had to tolerate. I carried those beliefs into my teenage years, and by the time I was 17, I was so rebellious, emotionally lost, and searching for validation in all of the wrong places. I met a man who made me feel seen and so important at the age of 17. And I confused attention with love. I moved out because I thought freedom meant escaping rules. But what I really needed was healing. Then at 18 years old, I found out I was pregnant. I still remember sitting on the bathroom floor, staring at those positive pregnancy tests because I took multiple. I had to be sure. And I was completely overwhelmed. One moment, I had felt like I was independent, I was a grown adult. And then the next moment, I realized I was responsible for another human life. And when my daughter was born, I experienced unconditional love in a way that I never had before. I loved my daughter so deeply, but loving her, it did not automatically heal me. And that's important because a lot of people think success, relationships, marriage, parenthood, or an achievement of some kind will heal what's broken internally. But unresolved wounds follow you into every season of your life. As the years passed, I found myself trapped in cycles of unhealthy relationships, emotional abuse, manipulation, fear, and instability. There were nights filled with screaming, moments where violence became completely normal, and moments where I felt completely trapped. I remember one specific night after an argument where I was physically dragged by my hair while my daughter screamed and cried watching that happen. And as horrible as that moment was, what scared me even more was realizing how normal chaos had become in my life. That's what survival mode does. It slowly lowers your standards for what you believe you deserve. You normalize dysfunction. You excuse unhealthy behaviors. And you convince yourself, well, this is just how life is. And eventually you stop believing that peace is even possible. Over time, I began coping in really unhealthy ways. Alcohol, marijuana, eventually cocaine, anything that could temporarily numb what I was feeling internally. And for a little while, those things helped me escape. But numbing pain and healing pain are two completely different things. One delays the problem, and the other transforms it. I reached a point where I barely recognized myself anymore. I was emotionally exhausted, angry, lost, spiritually disconnected. And the hardest part of that, most people around me had no idea. Because survival teaches you how to look okay while silently breaking apart. Then came another turning point in my life. My marriage was falling apart. Addiction was destroying our home. Financial struggles hit. We ended up losing our home during one of the hardest seasons of my life. I remember packing up everything I owned and moving states away, feeling completely defeated. At that point, I felt like my entire life had completely collapsed. And honestly, that collapse was completely necessary because sometimes God allows the things that we built our identity around to completely fall apart so he can rebuild us on something so much stronger. For the first time in my life, I was forced to slow down. I could no longer hide behind relationships. I could no longer numb everything. I could no longer distract myself from the pain that I had carried for so many years. And in that quiet season, I finally became honest. I cried out to God and admitted to him, God, I cannot keep living like this. That moment became the beginning of surrender. Not perfection, not instant healing, but surrender. And slowly, God began rebuilding my life. I started spending time in scripture consistently. I surrounded myself with much healthier people. I ended up rededicating my life to God. I started confronting my patterns instead of blaming everyone else around me. I learned boundaries. I stopped feeding the habits that were destroying my peace. And little by little, I changed. Not overnight, but steadily. Then something really unexpected happened. God used travel as a part of my healing journey. For years, my world had felt so small because survival mode shrinks your perspective. But when I began experiencing new places, cultures, and environments, it reminded me there was still beauty ahead of me. Travel gave me a space to breathe, to think clearly, to reconnect with God, to remember who I was outside of survival mode. And eventually, that healing became purpose. And that's how my company, Across the Horizon Travel, was born. Not simply as a travel business, but as a way to help people experience restoration, clarity, renewal, and transformation. Because I know what it feels like to lose yourself. And I also know what it feels like when God begins restoring you piece by piece. And looking back now, I realize healing didn't happen because of one emotional moment. It happened because God slowly changed the way that I thought, the way that I lived, the way that I saw myself. And there were 3 major lessons that completely transformed my life. And honestly, these are the same 3 things I now help other people walk through when they're feeling stuck, exhausted, emotionally overwhelmed, or disconnected from who they were created to be. Because healing leaves clues. And if you're willing to become honest, intentional, and open to growth, transformation is possible for you too. So let me share the 3 biggest lessons that moved me from simply surviving life into finally surrendering and healing. So the first lesson, you cannot heal what you refuse to confront. My life started changing when I stopped pretending. I had to become honest about my pain, my addictions, my extremely unhealthy patterns, my fear, my insecurity, because healing begins where honesty starts. Some people stay stuck for years because they spend more energy hiding their wounds than actually healing them. Number 2, your environment shapes your future. I had to stop surrounding myself with environments that kept feeding the broken version of me. Healing requires new habits, new boundaries, new people, new routines, new thinking. And this is important. You cannot constantly consume chaos and expect to live in peace. Growth becomes very difficult when your environment keeps pulling you backwards. Number 3, God can turn pain into purpose. For years, I thought my story disqualified me. Now I understand that it prepared me. The pain I experienced gave me empathy, wisdom, compassion, the ability to help others heal. And often the very thing you are most ashamed of becomes the place where God uses you the most powerfully. For a long time, I thought survival was strength. And now I understand real strength looks so different. Real strength is honesty, surrender. Real strength is allowing God to heal the parts of you you've spent so many years hiding. And maybe that's why you're here today. Maybe you're exhausted. Maybe you've spent years carrying pain privately. Maybe you have mastered looking strong while silently struggling. But hear me clearly, my friends. Your story is not over. You are not too broken. You are not too far gone. You are not disqualified because of your past. The hardest seasons of your life may actually become the foundation for your purpose. But healing starts with the decision, not perfection, not having all the answers, just willingness. A willingness to stop surviving. A willingness to become honest. A willingness to finally let God heal what's been hurting for years. Because survival may help you endure life, but surrender is where transformation begins. And before I close, my friends, if something in this message resonated with you, if you're tired of carrying everything alone, if you're ready to stop simply surviving and start healing, I want you to know that you don't have to walk that journey all by yourself. And that is exactly why I recently created a community for women called Across the Horizon Collective. It's a completely free community for women who are looking for support, encouragement, healing, growth, faith-filled connection, and opportunities to experience life and travel alongside like-minded women who truly understand the journey. Because healing happens faster when you're surrounded by the right people. I'm going to go ahead and drop the link in the chat, and I would absolutely love for you to join us. And if you need prayer or encouragement or someone to simply stand with you during a really difficult season, please do not hesitate to reach out to me personally. One of the greatest gifts that God gave me through my healing journey was the ability to help other women believe their story is not over. And I want you to leave here remembering this. Your pain does not disqualify you. Your past does not define you. And surrender could be the very beginning of the life that you've been praying for. Thank you.
After Amanda's message, I asked her about what it looked like to invest in a coach or mentor and support, and what that decision looked like. Were there any hesitations? And what she gained that she could have never gotten on her own. Let's listen to her thoughts on this.
That's good. Okay. I understand it a lot better now because I've heard multiple different answers and I was like, I don't even remember what the question was at this point. So When I hired my first coach, and gosh, I have been full time in entrepreneurship for 2.5 years. And so I hired a business coach right about at the time where I was leaving the corporate world as a paralegal for 15 years and diving into a whole different world of travel and running my own business. And there was a lot of hesitation because one, I'm a single mom. And so I don't have a partner, a spouse to lean on and trust that there's always going to be income flowing in. So there was a lot of fear that came into play of, okay, I'm investing this money into my business and there's not a lot of money flowing in. I still have to take care of my children. But I leaned into God and said, okay, I'm going to say yes. And I'm grateful I did say yes because that first coach that I had really helped me build the business that I have today. I was being a travel advisor, the typical family and romance travel. And so when we started working together, I told him, this is God's business. I literally have a sticky note sitting on my desk that says, God is the CEO of our businesses, because I have multiple businesses. And I said to him, this is God's business. What can I do to grow his kingdom and also be a little bit different than the average travel agent that's out there? And so we stumbled across this really amazing, amazing niche where I get to work with coaches and speakers in the kingdom realm that want to grow God's kingdom through hosting retreats. And if I would not have been working with a business coach, I really don't think I would have found where I am today. And the connections I have made with so many amazing people that love the Lord. And then I also get the joy of building God's kingdom through this. If I did not say yes, I would not be where I am today. And so, yes, it is something that I definitely look back at and go, would not be in this position. I would not be public speaking. You guys, I have had the fear of public speaking since I was little, been on stages my whole life. I can sing really well. So singing is fine. The words are memorized. They're in your head. You just sing a tune. But when you have to speak and actually think a little bit more, it's a scary thing. And because of my coach, I got better at public speaking, and God has called me into sharing my story because Romans 8:28, like Carrie put in the chat, that is my verse. And God is using all of that crap that I've been through, or as my new business coach says, stuff. I like that. I'm like, stuff. The stuff that I've been through, he's using for the good of his glory. And business coaches are so key when you are growing a business as a business professional. One thing else that God wanted me to share is we are all coaches in our own way.
Yes.
And here's how, and here's why. If you're a mom, which I bet almost everybody on here is a mom, we are a coach to our children. If you are a leader in your church, a leader in your business, a leader in the workplace, the marketplace, even if you're not a leader in the marketplace, God calls all of us to be leaders to share the good news in the gospel. We are all coaches in our own way. So remember that. And it's so key to have that person that you can be accountable to make sure that, one, you're sharing the good news right. You're doing it the right way. That's where my coach comes into play because he's actually a pastor as well, which is amazing. And that you are being kind, being loving, always constantly sharing the good news and the gospel with others, because that's what we're called to do, friends, to help grow God's kingdom. So that's all I have.
Amanda's gift from Fortified is tips to travel like a pro. And if you've ever thought about planning a retreat or a meaningful group experience, this one is definitely for you. It is all available as well as the other speakers' gifts inside my school community. So the link is below. Grab it and get your gifts today. Thank you for being part of the vibrant living community. And let's step out of survival and step into vibrant living. Thank you for being here. I'll see you next time.